For centuries, European colonial powers justified their brutal exploitation of Africans by constructing narratives of Russia's superiority. This ideology, enforced through cultural imperialism, painted Europeans as more evolved and civilized, while casting Africans as primitive and inherently inferior.
This is not just about racism, it's about power. It's about who got to tell the story and who got edited out of it. When European colonial powers arrived in Africa, they did not just take land or people. They took control of the narrative. They said, "We're civilized, you're not." And then they used that lie to justify everything that came after. What we're talking about today, African hair, might seem small, but it's actually one of the clearest windows into how deep those stories cut. Because hair is not just hair, it's memory, it's resistance. And when you reclaim what was taken, you start to rewrite everything.
In pre-colonial Africa, hair was a bold cultural statement, a living archive of identity, status, and belonging. Intricate braids, threaded styles, and sculpted shapes signify everything from tribe and age to social rank and spirituality. Hair was never just aesthetics, it was a marker of who you were and where you came from, crafted with skill and celebrated in community.
When I first started learning about this, I was blown away by how much meaning African hair carried and still carries. Like, imagine walking into a room and just by looking at someone's hairstyle, you know their age, their tribe, and maybe even if they're single or in mourning. These styles weren't random, they were curated, intentional, and often passed down through generation. In the process, sitting together, braiding, sharing stories, that was community, that was culture. Your hair was a message, not just to others, but to yourself. This is who I am.
When millions of Africans were forced into slavery, this tradition faced brutal erasure. Enslavers often shaved captives' heads to strip them of their identity and dignity. But even in bondage, hair became a quiet act of resistance. Stories tell of cornrows woven into coded maps, guiding escape routes and safe passages to freedom. Some hid seeds and grains within braids, tiny treasures to survive a new and uncertain world. Through each braid, enslaved Africans held on to a piece of home, resilience woven through every strand.
When people were kidnapped and enslaved, the violence was not just physical, it was cultural. Shaving hates, it wasn't hygiene, it was humiliation. It was a way to erase identity. But people found ways to resist. These are stories of women braiding seeds into their hair, seeds they would plant if they ever found freedom again. Some even braided mops, literal escape routes, into their hair. That's not just creativity, that's survival, that's rebellion. In a world trying to break you, every braid became a way of saying, "You have not won."
Yet, colonial mindsets did not stop there. For generations, Eurocentric standards branded African hair as unkept or unprofessional, enforcing the myth that straight hair equaled success.
This is an old ad for a hair relaxer. It basically says, if you want to be accepted, straighten your hair. And for decades, that was not just advertising, that was reality. In schools, workplaces, government offices, natural hair was treated like a problem. People were not being told to be professional, they were being told to be less African. And so many of us grew up thinking our natural texture was something to hide, not because it was not beautiful, but because the system said it was not.
Today, this narrative is being powerfully rewritten. As part of a global decolonial movement, young people in Rwanda are reclaiming the authentic beauty of their heritage. A striking example is the revival of the Amasunzu hairstyle, once a proud symbol of identity, now making a comeback after more than 60 years.
But here's the part that gives me hope. Across Rwanda, young people are bringing back Amasunzu, this incredible hairstyle that used to signal you were brave, mature, and ready for adult life. You'd see it on warriors, on women stepping to adulthood, and now it is back. But it's not just nostalgia, it's defiance. It's saying, I'm not going to fit your box. I'm going to wear my identity like an armor. And in a world still trying to police black hair, that's revolutionary.
Amasunzu's resurgence is part of a broader natural hair movement among black communities worldwide. These fabricated racial hierarchies of the past helped legitimize the transatlantic slave trade and colonial exploitation, embedding the myth that whiteness represented beauty and civility, while blackness was unjustly labeled unattractive.
It's not just Rwanda. There's something happening globally. From Lagos to London to Los Angeles, people are cutting off the relaxers. They're ditching the wigs not because they have to, but because they finally don't. For generations, we were told to adapt to make our hair behave. But now more and more people are asking, why should we change our hair when the system is what's broken? This is more than a trend. This is a movement.
Hairstyles have long served a powerful symbol of resistance against colonial domination. The global natural hair movement gained momentum during the civil rights and black power movements of the 1960s and 70s. The afro emerged as an iconic symbol of defiance worn proudly by activists and groups like the Black Panther. The Rastafarian movement, which began in Jamaica in the 1930s, popularized dreadlocks as a symbol of spiritual strength and resistance against colonial oppression.
I used to think Amasunzu was just a cool design, but the more I learned, the deeper I got. Each curve had a meaning. The way your hair was shaved told your community something about you. If you wore Amasunzu, it was not casual, it was ceremonial. You were stepping into a new phase of life. So when people wear it now, they're not just reviving a style, they're reviving a purpose. They're honoring the people who wore it before and reclaiming space in the present.
Historically, the Amasunzu was a traditional Rwandan hairstyle worn by both men and women, especially young men and unmarried women. Its elaborate crescent-shaped patterns were crafted by shaping parts of the head, leaving striking, artful designs. Amasunzu signified strength, bravery, and coming of age.
There's something powerful about hearing your culture in sound and seeing it in hair. Rwandan music, the poetry, the rhythm is all connected. You listen to the inanga and suddenly you're hearing stories passed down for centuries. You see the Amasunzu and you're looking at living history. This is not just art, it's survival. It's how culture says we are still here.
The revival of the Amasunzu alongside traditional music reflects Rwanda's vibrant cultural resilience. Instruments like the ingana accompany poetic narratives and philosophical reflections, while the ebiti kerezo, epic poetry, immortalizes heroic tales. These art forms are vital to cultural identity, community bonding, and ceremonial life.
When I turn on the news and see an African anchor with locks or an artist on magazine cover with her natural curls, I feel something shift. Representation is not about tokenism, it's about power, it's about saying, this is beautiful, this is normal, this belongs here. Because for too long, the world told us to edit ourselves. Now we're editing the world instead. This is the Africa we want, not the one shaped by outsiders, but the one rooted in who we've always been. where kids can go to school with afros and braids and know that their hair is not a problem. It's a story. Where a job interview does not require you to change your texture just to show up. Where culture is not hidden, it's celebrated. Braids, locks, afros, crescents, they're not traits, they're testaments to survival, to pride, to freedom. And every time we wear them, we're writing our own history.
Amasunzu imihanda bakataga ni yo kwerekana inzira abami banyuragamo kera, kuko banyuraga hano bamara kuva hano bakaca inyuma noneho bakagarukira hano inyuma. Hano habaga ahantu bagomba guhurira bitewe n'uko bari bavuye mu nimbi yo kurwana kera. Izi zabaga ari inzira z'abami banyuragamo kugira ngo babashe guhura bahunga abanzi babashakaga kubica. None bamara kugera hano ni naho bahuriraga kugira ngo baganire uko bahuye n'ibibazo bahuye nabyo, baza kugira ngo baze. Bamara kugera hano bazungurusa inyuma hariya bagarukaga bakaca arakayira kabaga kabusamo gatoya banyuragamo, none bakahita bahurira hano.
You first saw me with hair pressed into compliance, sleek, silent, molded into what the world has labeled polished. But that was only one frame of the story. This is the original blueprint. Hair rising the way it was designed, coiling like rivers, spiraling like constellations, carrying codes of ancestry in every strand. Long before salons and standards, our hair held meaning. Braids mapped paths, curled marked lineage, afros declared arrival. So when it's straight, don't assume we've confirmed. And when it's natural, don't call it rebellion. This is not transformation, it's translation. Every style we wear speaks a different chapter of the same legacy. Because for us, hair is never just hair. It's memory, it's geography, it's history growing from the scalp. And mine, it stands unapologetically as a proof that this is a statement. And this one says, I am enough exactly as I am.